Hi. One of the great things about my job is that I am obviously the master of my own time, but I get to spend quite a bit of time doing research. And I've spent the whole day researching the relationship between stress and COVID-19. And today is also the first day of the school run, so I'm sitting here waiting to pick up my boy. And I thought I would just offer some thoughts, some stuff I've learned today while I've been doing this research. COVID-19 is a big thing, right? And even I, who I'm do psychological research all the time, I hadn't fully realized the relationship between stress and COVID-19. So let me just tell you how it works. Stress, we all know what stress is, right? But we kind of just go, yeah, I'm stressed. Well, chronic stress is that kind of stress that you accept as being normal. Now, I used to commute to London, and I would have said, yeah, it's stressful, it's tiring, it's a lot of bother, you have to get up early, it's tired, stuff. But actually, commuting actually is physiologically stressful. It creates a stress response in your body, and the longer your commute, the worse it is. Being stuck in traffic or do a lot of driving, driving on the motorways, for instance, that is stressful, and it creates a measurable stress response in your body. And typically, the kind of measure of the biological measure of stress is a cortisol level, that kind of thing. But it also affects, your cognitive functions. So here's what happens. If your brain perceives some form of stress, and it could be anything, it could be an internal stressor or it could be an external stressor, it causes your hypothalamus to release corticotrophin hormone. Now, corticotrophin hormone moves from the hypothalamus, which is sort of here-ish, to the pituitary, and the pituitary releases adrenocorticotrophic hormone. That then goes to your adrenal glands, which are situated on top of your kidneys, and they release adrenaline and cortisol. And cortisol has a number of functions. It affects all sorts of bits and pieces of your body, but cortisol has a significant effect, particularly when we're talking about COVID-19, because cortisol suppresses your immune system. Now, if you struggle with chronic stress, that means that your immune system is more suppressed than someone who does not suffer from chronic stress. Now, stress is unique, it's individual. Your stress is not the same as someone else's stress. But in research literature, they've had to find animal models of stress, and they've had to find human beings who are significantly stressed. And they typically often use carers. So if you're a carer, for instance, for someone who, let's say, has Alzheimer's or dementia, or a carer for someone, that's quite a stressful job. And it turns out that when they give these people an inoculation for influenza, their immune response is less than for age and socioeconomic match controls. So basically, chronic stress reduces the effect of an inoculation for influenza. Chronic stress also reduces the ability to heal from wounds by about 40%. Chronic stress also makes you susceptible to rhinoviruses such as the common cold. So this suppression of the immune system has all sorts of ramifications and consequences. And it's particularly relevant if we think about COVID-19 because A, chronic stress will likely make you more susceptible to catching it, and for it to have a greater effect upon you because your immune system is compromised. Incidentally, chronic stress also has the effect through a compromised immune system of likely making you more susceptible to rheumatoid problems, immunosuppressant, autoimmune problems. And we see elevated levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, in depression and anxiety, which is, in a principle, how it comes directly down to the kinds of things that we talk about. Interestingly, I've also, when I was creating Anxiety Wizard, Mood Control, and all those kinds of programs, I put in a number of things which are universally considered to be stressful. Things like intolerance, lack of information about what's going on, loss of control, and helplessness. And it turns out that uncertainty, lack of information, and loss of control are kind of three of the biggest elements of creating a sort of like a stress response. So I hope you find this interesting. I thought it was quite fascinating because stress is, stress, people go, yeah, I'm stressed. And I kind of go, well, why do you need to be stressed? I always say to people, why do you need to be stressed? And they say, I don't need to be stressed. I say, well, why are you stressed then? Well, I just am. It implies that there's a sort of it's just what it is, right? Yeah, it's just what it is. But it's got a significant life-affecting quality to it. Because if you're just accepting chronic stress, you're likely doing damage to your body, your digestive system, your respiratory system, all sorts of kind of things that are slow to develop as problems, but once you've got them, it's a real problem, right? So I generally say, let's make stress optional. And I always work with clients to reduce stress because it's pointless to have stress if you don't need to have it. I equally will say, why do you need to be anxious? And people will go, well, I don't. Okay, well then what do we do something about it? It's not useful. It's not very functional to have unnecessary, really chronic problems that affect the course of your life, because actually, why not just work to get rid of them? So I hope you found this interesting. I thought I would take the time, whilst it's all fresh in my mind, and I'm sitting here waiting for the school run, to just to post this information. And I know some people contact me, they say, oh, I'm kind of concerned about COVID, etc. I'm concerned about catching it. I'm concerned about people I care about catching it. I'm concerned about what effect it's going to have on me. Well, of course, we cannot, and we have really very little control over whether we catch it. Now, that's not actually true in the sense we can wash our hands, we can wear a mask, we can socially isolate, we can not go to places, we can, we've got those physical things that we can do. They're protectives, right? But apart from that, we have, no control of whether there's virus in the air. We have no control over whether people, touch us or cough on us and stuff. So, we have the things that we can control, and that's the best that we can do. But here's the thing. We can control whether we're stressed, which makes us vulnerable to coronavirus and influenza generally, actually. We can control whether we're anxious or depressed, and we can control, whether we have panic or OCD. We have potential control over these psychological problems. These are not unsolvable problems. The question is whether we choose to solve them or not. So I hope you find that interesting. Please leave comments and let me know what you think about this impromptu piece of sort of information bulletin about the effects of chronic stress on influenza and COVID-19. And thanks for taking the time to watch and listen.